All right, a major national conversation today centering on abortion laws across the United States. Today, the Supreme Court heard arguments on a Mississippi law that looked to ban almost all abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy. That Mississippi law is one of the most significant challenges to the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court case, the case that determined the Constitution provides a right to abortion. A decision isn't expected until next year, so we have to sit tight till next summer. But it creates questions about what would happen in Idaho if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Well, we know how it would go legally. Idaho actually does have trigger laws on the topic on the books. And Joe Paris joins me now to look at those laws. Joe, it's pretty simple, though. What would happen here in Idaho if Roe v. Wade is overturned?
Yeah, and actually lawmakers years ago have actually determined, okay, we know exactly what we want to do if the federal courts decide X, Y, and Z. So yes, Idaho's prepared should Roe v. Wade is ever overturned. During the 2020 legislative session, actually, Brian, lawmakers passed what's known, as you just referred to, as a trigger bill. And it sounds exactly like it's worded there. It means that if and when Roe v. Wade is overturned, the law would automatically then give the state of Idaho the power to make their own decisions on abortion. And in Idaho, that would mean that abortion would be outlawed in almost all cases. And the state of Idaho does have two laws that kick in if the states are given the right to determine specific abortion policy on the state level. Now, the first one I just mentioned passed last year, 2020. It's a simple addition to Idaho law that makes abortion in most cases a crime. It physically puts that in the state statute. It would make it a crime, though, for the doctor to perform an abortion, not a crime for the mother to get one. Now, it's important to note that there are exceptions to Idaho's trigger law. Bill sponsor Representative Megan Blanksma, Republican in the State House, she explained to us exactly what those exceptions are right after the bill passed.
It outlaws abortion in most cases. But it does provide for an affirmative defense in the case of rape and incest for women, and it doesn't criminalize abortion for pregnant women. Part of the discussion on the floor was talking about choices, and particularly in the case of rape and incest, that choice is taken away from the woman. They don't have a choice. They're forced into a situation that they didn't choose to be in. And so that was why it was particularly important to put those exemptions in.
The law states that if a doctor is caught performing an abortion that is not a case of rape, incest, or medical need, that the doctor would face 2 to 5 years in prison as well, possible suspension of their medical license. The mother, again, would not be prosecuted in the state of Idaho. Now, the state has a second law that would also kick into effect if there's ever any decision to uphold a restriction or ban on an abortion of a preborn child with a heartbeat by any United States appellate court. So basically what's going on right now. Now, that law was signed into law this year back in April after passing the Idaho legislature. About a dozen states have very similar laws, but in Idaho specifically, it would prohibit abortion procedures when a fetal heartbeat can be detected, with the exceptions included for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. Now, there is debate about when a fetal heartbeat can be detected, with some believing it can be only weeks into a pregnancy. Now, the 6 weeks marks is really what pro-life advocates are pointing at, and that's what a recent Texas law also defined as well, 6 weeks. But there are also arguments that fetal activity at 6 weeks should not be considered a heartbeat, but rather something as a precursor. Again, though, there are penalties for doctors who would perform an abortion under the law, not for women. So what do abortion numbers look like in the state of Idaho? Here's the latest data from the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, and it captures between 2008 and 2019, the most latest data available. During that time, there was an average of about 1,400 abortions performed every year. And Brian, a large majority of those abortions were on women aged 20 to 29. So a really interesting conversation, I know, that's being held nationwide, but we'll see how it plays out in Idaho once they make their decision.
And we're going to have to wait until at least next summer, though, to find out. And if the decision goes a certain way to ban abortions or to go along with this Mississippi law, it could happen immediately or within 30 days.
Right.
Here in Idaho. All right. Thank you, Joe.